For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Alrighty, I think I remember how to do this. Let's give it a shot. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all of those joining us live this morning, wherever you may be tuning in from, we say good morning, universe, and welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Season 17 of the program. Hard to believe it's been that long. Refreshed, rejuvenated, relaxed. It is Dave Manouk in the top right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle, and I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Great to see everybody. Gentlemen, we haven't spoken in the last 7 weeks, and that's the way I like it, but I've never been more excited to be back doing our thing Saturday mornings with the two of you fine gentlemen. Good to see you both.
What's up, boys? It's great to be back, as you said, Drew, and you know that the regular season is just around the corner, guys, when Dave is analyzing a informal jet skate, a Hockey for All center. So obviously Dave M was there yesterday talking to Morgan Barron, talking to Luke Shen. The boys are back on the ice. So we're going to have some hockey on the ice to talk about. It's only 15 days away, guys, from the Jets' first preseason game. So it's definitely coming in hot, but I missed you guys, and I definitely missed the chat. So, as I said, it's great to be back.
It is great to be back, Dave M. Nice to see you as well on this Saturday morning, already tweeting away, blue skying away, pecking your little fingers while looking down at the screen. We know what you're doing.
Well, I'm trying to make sure that as many people know as possible that this is the 17th season of Illegal Curve Hockey. Yeah. And I'll reiterate Ezzy's point. I'm beyond excited to be back in this chair and ready to talk hockey with you guys. And as touched on, we've already got some content up for folks, Jets related with our chats with Morgan Barron yesterday and Luke Shen. And yes, guys are slowly filtering in. I was there Wednesday. There were about 9 guys on the ice, including Jonathan Taves. So I had a chance to see him up close and personal in his 19 jersey. And then, of course, a few got more guys, like I touched on yesterday on Twitter. Those guys join the mix. So yeah, it's there's up to about 13, 14, 15 guys skating now, and I suspect by next week it's going to be an even bigger group because we're going to have the young prospects who are heading off to the Prospect Showcase in Montreal next week. So I think they're on the ice on the 10th and the 11th maybe, or they leave on the 11th, but we'll have more from all the young guns as well.
The point is, it is ramping up, and it will ramp up quickly. In fact, 2 weeks from today, we will, of course, be live at the Hockey for All Center, a live on-location broadcast of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show as part of Winnipeg Jets Fan Fest. So you can mark that into your calendars. 2 weeks from today, that's the 20th of September. Come see us live and in person and gaze upon our beauties and wonder why we are shivering in a very cold rink. I won't do that again like we did last year when I was
out. Dress appropriately, Drew.
Yeah, Dave was wearing shorts and sandals. I was sitting there in a hoodie, and I was still frozen solid. So we've learned our lesson about that. I have very thin skin now that I'm getting old as we do year 17 here of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Lots to discuss about the Winnipeg Jets, at least since we were last on air. Mm-hmm. There was news for the Jets after we departed for our summer hiatus. That was rude of the Jets to take as long as they did to get those decisions, those contracts signed. Gabe Vilardi, of course, that 6-year contract extension back on July the 18th. He gets $7.5 million a year moving forward. And of course, the one that went right down to the wire, the arbitration deadline induced deal between the Jets and Dylan Samberg. 3 years for Dylan Samberg, $5.75 per season for those two. Let's start with the Samberg contract this morning. I know we might be rehashing some old news, but that's okay. We haven't had our share of a kick at the can regarding it just yet. And, frankly, there's a lot of time to discuss the Winnipeg Jets as we approach the start of training camp. 3 years for Samberg. Are you surprised at the length of the contract, Ezzy? Did you think it was going to be more, or as it got closer and closer to that arbitration date, did you maybe think they were just going to try and find a happy median between longer term and shorter term?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Drew, because the latter part of your question, I think my answer would be yes. As soon as it got closer to that arbitration date, you started thinking, well, maybe this isn't going to be a 7 or 8 year deal. Obviously, guys, Jets fans were hoping for the long-term contract. I think everybody, especially based on last season, but based on, Sandberg's career to date, I mean, he has been exactly what you would want out of a left side defenseman, and he has established himself there on the second pair with Neil Pionk, right? So I am surprised, but not that surprised as it proceeded. Obviously, look, Sandberg has a bigger payday coming, right, guys? That's what you do when you sign a 3-year contract. You're betting that by the time that contract expires, your offensive numbers are a little bit better, and then you're entitled to a bigger payday, right? So, yeah, I'm surprised, but not worried at all, because I do think that, Dylan Sandberg is going to be one of those long-term Jets. So I'm not that concerned, but I definitely was hoping for an 8-year contract, right? Anybody who listens to the show knows how big of a fan I am of Sandberg. I think we're all fans of Sandberg. Last time I checked, unless somebody changed their mind over the summer, guys. But yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if he signed that longer-term contract, Dave. But I think even though he signed for 3 years, I think he's going to sign again once that current contract is expired.
Well, it's interesting to look at, Dave, and I want your opinion on that same question I asked Ezzy, but you look at the Jets defense projecting outwards. Morrissey, Sandberg, and DeMello, and I would put DeMello at a level below Morrissey and Sandberg, of course, they all expire at the same offseason. So that's something certainly going to be interesting to keep an eye on, as things unfold for these 3 players. Now, at that point in time, Morrissey will be, mid-30s, 33 or so. Sandberg will be late 20s. DeMello will be even a couple years older than Morrissey. But it is interesting that those 3 key cogs in the Jets defense are all scheduled to expire their next contracts on this after the same 27-28 offseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kevin Shoveldayoff definitely structured it in an interesting way, but it is interesting. Like again, I know what you're saying. It's somewhat old news, Drew, but again, we haven't really talked about it on our show. So, yeah, I mean, the Dylan Sandberg one was definitely an interesting situation. I mean, look, the arbitration date was set for Wednesday. He told us when we spoke to him via Zoom, in addition to finding out that Winnipeg is basically just like Hermantown with less trees. So I didn't know that he was a part-time arborist, but
I've been to Hermantown. It's actually a nice little area. Duluth.
I thought you were going to say you're a part-time arborist. That would have been more impressive news.
He's a big fan of the oak tree.
Even though the apple tree in my backyard here in St. James is driving me crazy, I'm going to have to trim some branches down. Like, there's just so many apples. Well, if anybody has an apple tree, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Are you making pies? Are you making jams? Are you making crumbles? Are you making crisps?
No,
I don't need to know what kind of baking you're doing with these apples.
No, I'm not doing any baking, Drew. I'm just raking the apples up and then putting them in a garden bag.
Drew, I got bad news for you. He's just collecting them so he can just start pelting you with apples as you walk down the street, not waving to Murat.
It's ammo.
There's that local cider company that'll come and pick your apples. They want your apples.
Really?
I think it's I'm going to give them a play. I think it's Dead Horse Cider. Maybe it's a different company. I don't remember, but they will come to your yard and they will take the apples from your trees because they use them in the production of their respective ciders.
Why is their cider company called Dead Horse?
That you'd have to ask them about. I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
well, it doesn't sound that appetizing.
I got good news. It took 17 seasons, but it took all of 10 minutes to have our first derailment of the show. Because I have my arborist comment. But anyways, I think that going back to Dylan Sandberg, as much as I want to talk about these apples, and we can later in the show, I was surprised. I definitely was surprised that it was a short-term deal. I asked him about that, and it's interesting because his answer basically said he had a really good season last year, but it was kind of clear from the Jets and from his side, but mostly you kind of got the sense of what he was saying that the Jets kind of indicated was that they wanted to see him do that again. They needed to see that replication of what he brought last year. Now, if anybody kind of follows his career, that he's just continued to add every single season, and he's gotten
Mhm.
better and better and better. So no one will be surprised when he equals what he did last year, boys. At least I wouldn't be. So I understood kind of the concept there, but I mean, yeah, I would have locked him up for a longer term. The good news is, they avoided arbitration, obviously, because that we know never ends well.
Right.
But he did say, when I asked him about staying long, 3-year contract versus something longer, he said his exact quote was, "Hopefully later down the road that continues to go and I can stay there longer." So I don't think there's nothing to worry about in terms of the relationship between Sandberg and the Jets. And again, I expect, if he continues, he's going to be a cornerstone defenseman, and they'll sign him accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, I think it would have been absolutely catastrophic if, he was going to walk right into free agency. If it was, they couldn't come to that deal, if they couldn't come to that agreement, before the arbitration.
And the Jets matched his number, Drew, right? Like, I mean, it's not like, remember, the Jets number what was the Jets number? It was low. It was like, was it $2 million? It was whatever it was.
Well, it's always low.
No, I understand. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the players, the arbitration number, not the arbitration, the pre-arbitration number ended very close to what Sandberg requested versus the Jets, which is not a huge surprise because the Jets obviously got the term they wanted. So, you have to give and take.
Right, exactly right. It tells you that I think it was more so about trying to, it was just, they weren't able to find that common ground on a longer term deal. I mean, that's, and you know what, that's with the salary cap rising rapidly, as we know that it's going to
do what he did.
It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
I mean, frankly, especially for a guy who's in his prime, in his mid-20s, who still has more to give. So he's going to hit, if he hits unrestricted free agency, at the age of 29. You don't think they'll be 31? Well, probably by then, maybe 36, 37, 38 other NHL teams lining up to try and get a guy like that under contract for a longer term deal. It makes a lot of sense.
With probably another $15, $20 million on the salary cap.
Exactly.
And boys, just because he signed a 3-year deal doesn't mean that an 8 or 7-year deal wasn't discussed. Like,
I'm sure it was.
We obviously are not inside the room. We're not flies on the wall, even though I would like to be. I'm not sure if I would be a house fly or what kind of fly I would be, but I think that it's expected, to be expected, I should say, that they were discussing a long-term contract. And I agree with Dave. I think when Sandberg's 3-year deal expires, what's the cap going to be, Dave? Something like 110 million, 115 million, right? Sure. So it's going to be significantly higher, and Sandberg deserves to be paid. And some people, I think, still think this is an overstatement, but he has become one of the elite defensive defensemen in the league. He really has. I'm not saying he's going to win a Norris Trophy next year. I'm just saying that he has, if you look at his numbers, his defensive impact numbers, his, WAR or expected goals against or whatever you want to look at, guys. I mean, this guy is an elite. He's a top pairing defenseman on most teams, to be honest with you. And obviously in Winnipeg, we've got Josh Morrissey on the top pair on the left side. But I think just because he signed a 3-year deal, I think there's nothing wrong with that, and he's going to sign a long-term deal most likely, or at the very least, you got to think that his next contract's going to be, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Well, so that's, I mean, obviously 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road is something, this is a conversation we'll probably be having, when the next contract gets signed or doesn't get signed, but it is absolutely essential. He and Neil Pionk, are key cogs for that Winnipeg Jets, for a Winnipeg Jets team that is looking to certainly replicate the regular season that they had. Whether or not they can replicate it to that same degree, time will tell on that front, but certainly and improve upon where they did in the postseason last year. They got to that second round. They got over that first round, which was important for them. They got to that second round where they obviously lost in that 6th game to the Dallas Stars, a game we all remember well, a series we remember well. But this team and what they were talking about yesterday, Dave, at Hockey for All Center, is that they know that, there's some familiarity now. Luke Shen was speaking about that, how much more comfortable he is with this group now that his family is alongside with him. We remember he was traveling back and forth at the end of the year last year, but now his family's with him, settled in Winnipeg for this season. This team knows that, they're not a young team by any stretch of the imagination. They might have a couple young players who come up and try and break through, but this is a veteran team that is certainly I hate the cliche win now moment, but when you have a veteran team like this, when you go out and you get a Jonathan Taves, when you go out and get other veteran players, you're not thinking about continuing. You're not saying, the status quo is good enough. You're looking to make those building blocks to being a conference finalist or a Stanley Cup champion or a Stanley Cup competitor, like, so many, like the teams the Jets aspire to be.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And that's been like the root question I've asked every single player whenever we've talked to them throughout the course of this off season, or, like I said, you said, Drew, yesterday at Hockey for All, was just this idea of like the impact of Jonathan Toews, because to me, it goes well beyond what he can do on the ice. And that was my assessment, which I don't think I was unique in making, but I was curious to hear what guys like Morgan Barron and Luke Schenn actually had to say about that, right, Ezzy, and about what adding a guy who has his pedigree is going to do. And Luke Schenn's answer was like, I don't even think he's going to have to say a word. Like, it's just his presence alone there is going to be. And I asked Morgan Barron, I said, you're a young, relatively young center, wanting to learn from from Toews, what do you think he can do? And he was like, yeah, there's no question there's going to be an impact there, but it's also what he's going to do off the ice. And again, that's been kind of like what I said when we talked about this potential signing and the signing and all that, obviously, with Toews, was when you have a guy like this who has been there and done that, which nobody else, with the exception of Luke Schenn, has done in that room, it is going to be so significant. Now, again, I saw him on the ice. I'm not going to pretend in, scrums and drills that there was any sort of assessment as to how he's going to look in a game against other NHLers. But, he looked good. He's big. The one thing I will say is that, like, he was treating everybody the same. Didn't matter if you wore a Moose jersey or a Jets jersey. Everybody was kind of connected, which, again, hasn't always been the case. Sometimes the Moose are kind of left off to the side. But guys who were on AHL deals were, sitting there talking. He was bringing kind of everyone in. So I just think it's a very interesting situation with this team, because you're right, Drew. This is not a team that's like, okay, well, our window is 5 years from now. It's now. And I think that their window is open more than, I don't think it's just this year. But I think that you make that addition, you bring in a guy like Gus Nyquist trying to revitalize his career, right, Ezzy, and try and get back to where he thought he could be. And, of course, even like a Tanner Pearson, who obviously is a guy Luke Schenn has familiar with. He told us yesterday that he played with him in LA and Vancouver, and he played with Nyquist in Nashville. So I just think that this team understands that, you're right, Drew, these guys are getting up there in age. They're in their 30s. They're in their, what we see as their prime, with potential some additions of younger, and a younger infusion. But ultimately, this team has one goal, and I don't think it's changed from last season. And again, when we spoke to them at the end of the season last year, every guy, even like guys like Gabriel Velarde, when we were doing his exit meeting, he's still talking. He's like, I can't even think about exit meetings. I'm talking about I'm still thinking about what went wrong in the Dallas series and how we could have, won that series. So again, like I said, this is a team that knows what their focus is. And they haven't changed that significantly. They haven't had a huge turnover. Obviously, the loss of Nikolai Ehlers isn't insignificant. But the question becomes, can they get it done now with these additions and kind of continuing that upward trajectory? Don't have to be the President's Trophy winner, but you have to kind of keep, your defensive structure, which is what made you so successful last year.
I don't think anybody is debating whether the Jets are a good team or not. I think it's a matter of, this is going to be a less talented team, and a team that is going to probably rely more on its depth, right? I think that's the big question mark. I think most people would say that the Jets are at the very least a top 3 team in the Central, a team that's going to make the playoffs, whether you want to call that top 8 or top 5 in the West, right? But it's going to be an older team, and it's going to be a team that doesn't have the speed and skill of Ehlers, who we know is one of the most impactful 5-on-5 players in the league, right? So I think it is a continuation of last year, as Dave said. The Stanley Cup is still the ultimate goal. There might be some more question marks than there were last year, but I think that winning the first round, almost winning the second round, I mean, there's a lot of things to build on for this Jets team, and they will. And so it's going to be it's got a different feel than it did last year, for sure. I mean, last year I think nobody expected the 15-1 run. Nobody necessarily expected the Jets to win the President's Trophy, but with players like Jonathan Toews and Gus Nyquist filling in for more established younger players, i.e. Ehlers, Appleton, there's just it's a different type of vibe around the team, I would say. But again,
sorry, go ahead, Ezzy.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's still, I think it would be unrealistic to not have the Stanley Cup as your ultimate goal. I mean,
There's
what are we
no
doing?
question.
What are we doing here? Like, if we're not going for the Stanley Cup, just because you lost Ehlers and you might be a little bit older, and there might be some question marks based on how difficult it was to get out of that first round. I mean, this team is still built to win a Stanley Cup. So I think anything short of that is going to be ultimately a failure.
Well, they certainly have that. That's certainly the mindset, and as they would all admit to, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised to hear any player ever admit to that not being the goal. But there's no question that is the laser focus for the Winnipeg Jets. I was talking to somebody, going back to the influence of Taves and the impact of Jonathan Taves. I was talking to somebody who knows things, and what he was saying to me is he's saying that the organization, the Jets organization, is especially excited to see the impact that Jonathan Taves will have on Mark Scheifele. Now, it's sort of surprising to hear that, because it's not like Mark Scheifele is a 23-year-old kid who's just trying to break in. But Mark Scheifele, he's 32 at this point in time. He's well established himself. He had a great season for the Jets last year. He's established himself as one of the top centermen in the NHL. But within the organization, there is a hope, I wouldn't say an expectation necessarily, but a hope that Jonathan Taves will further positively impact Mark Scheifele, just because they're so dialed into hockey as, being just a core tenet of what they are about. They're both such hockey nerds, hockey scientists, for lack of better term right now, just, hockey aficionados, that they think that Taves will be able to even get more out of Scheifele. Scheifele will just learn more and develop more. Hard to believe at this age, mind you, but develop more just by sort of being next to Jonathan Taves and observing Jonathan Taves on the regular. So, we know that Taves is going to be, the organization hopes he's got an impact, a significant one. They're counting on it, to some degree, to be perfectly blunt, but they're also expecting that the residual effect of Jonathan Taves being around will impact somebody like Mark Scheifele, one of their best players, moving forward. So something to keep an eye on, certainly, throughout this year, I would say.
That would be great, because he's coming off of a career-high 87-point season, right, guys? Yeah. So if Taves is able to get even more out of Scheifele, and he's able to get into that 95 to 100-point range, then all the more power to you, right? And I think, what you're talking about, though, Drew, goes beyond just points, though. Obviously, I'm mentioning points here, but I think it's kind of those little things in hockey, right? Those little things that you can do, whether that's on a face-off or whether that's on a back check or a forecheck, like those types of subtleties in hockey, I think, will be where Taves can help Scheifele. And you think,
the subtleties that you only learn after 10, 12, 14 years in this league, the subtleties that the best of the best perform, that you don't even notice, that we as fans and as analysts don't even notice those subtleties. Like Sidney Crosby, there was an article, I think, in The Athletic yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, that talking about the Olympics and how the Team Canada brass for the Olympics, just having Sidney Crosby there, the advantage that his hockey intelligence gives to the team, they're counting on that as being a significant factor for Team Canada at the upcoming Olympics. You can make a parallel, certainly, I think, to Jonathan Taves and his on-ice and off-ice hockey acumen and what that can deliver to a team.
Right. And it goes back to what Dave M was saying before about the off-ice impact of Taves, because obviously once the season starts to get going, guys, we're hyper focused on wins and losses, right? We're breaking down the game that just happened and we're previewing the game that's coming up, right? We're always focused on that. Obviously, to a lesser degree, we focus on the practices and stuff like that. But for the most part, we're concerned about games, at least on this show, and most fans are considering that, and that's what they're focused on. But a lot takes place off the ice, right? Like these guys. It's not like these guys don't hang out with each other off the ice, right? Like, and so whether that's at the rink or whether that's away from the rink, I think a guy like Taves will not only have an influence on the entire team, but a guy like Scheifele, he can really, hopefully help him with the mental aspect of winning, right? We talk about that a lot. Like that's a huge part of not just hockey, but sports in general, right? So I think a guy like Taves, who's got that championship pedigree, he can help Scheifele, maybe controlling his emotions, for example. I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways that Taves can have an impact on a player like Scheifele, not just, making his wrist shot better, Dave, or, making him better on the power play, like making him an overall better competitor.
If he just takes faceoffs against Mark Scheifele, I mean, Jonathan Taves. I know sometimes people malign faceoffs, but I mean, you especially on a power play, you win a faceoff, it's a much better situation for your team. Taves' career faceoff percentage is 57%. Mark Scheifele's 46%. Sure. So you talk about an element of his game that could potentially help him improve. If you're going up against a guy who is a career, and we know how many faceoffs Jonathan Taves has taken in his entire career. If you could learn from him just that element, if he could teach, that's why to me he's almost like a player coach, right? Like that old school 1980s sort of player
Reg
coach.
Dunlop.
Yeah, exactly. There were, like, I think Scott Arniel, in fact, was a player coach, although that was not in the NHL. That was in, I want to say, in the IHL when he was playing for Utah. But I could be wrong. But I think he was like a player coach maybe. But the fact of the matter is that, that's what I'm talking about, though. Like something like that. Like it's funny, actually, as you say, that practice is in the hyper-focus, which I get. But it will be interesting to see how much these guys, because that is where you get to watch things. Where you get to see guys who stays on late, who's talking to who's working on their craft, and how are they doing that. So to me, that is an element that I think, again, like I said, I think it's all of these things. Do I think he's going to fix everything? And do I think the Jets are going to have some difficulties, right? This is a Jets team that wanted to play with speed. Well, they don't have necessarily the speed that they did previously. Mm-hmm. So now they're going to have to play a slightly different game. But, will they have the veteran savvy to adjust accordingly? I think they will. We don't know. Nobody knows. And, I saw it in the chat earlier, and the comment was 100% right. Nobody was predicting the Jets to win the President's Trophy last year. Not one person, including us. We all thought the Jets were a playoff team. We all thought the Jets were a top 3 team in the Central. But we didn't think that the Jets were going to win the President's Trophy, as did 99.9% of the entire NHL. So you don't know anything until you actually watch them play games. It's great to make predictions.
So what you're saying is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But when you're absolutely right, and that's what the fun of the preseason and the training camp and then the lead up is, as he said, once the games actually get started, you're so hyper focused on wins and losses, and from now it's more about right now it's about building the house. It's about building the house from now until the start of the season. Then it's about living in the house and succeeding in the house. And the Jets are trying to put themselves in the position to use the strongest materials possible in the structure of that home so that, when they're in the midst of living in it, the roof doesn't cave in or there's not a leak or anything along those lines.
I think what you're talking about is masonry construction versus wood frame.
You know what? Maybe that is what I'm talking about. I'm not entirely sure, but that's okay, Ezzy. That's a good, funny comment. Before we go to break, we have to mention the passing of Ken Dryden. That news came out earlier this morning. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but here's an old photo back from 2017. I have hair, so that should tell you how old that photo is, of yours truly and our good friend Rick Ralph and Ken Dryden together. This is back. I'm not even sure why I was on air that day, to be perfectly honest, but this is back at the old TSN 1290 studios. Ken came in and sat for an interview with Rick and myself. I've had the pleasure of knowing Ken, not well. I wouldn't pretend to know him well at all, but I had the pleasure of knowing him a little bit, especially during before the show was a thing. Back in our back when I worked in Ottawa. I don't talk about it on air often because we don't talk politics on this show, but I had the pleasure of knowing Ken through my interactions, on Parliament Hill, and he was a gentleman first and foremost. That's what everybody says about him. Unbelievably smart man, a scholar, far more than just a hockey player. He was a worldly individual who was always looking to think in deeper aspects than strictly wins and losses when it came to being a hockey player. And we saw that in the course of his legendary career as an author, in his work as a hockey executive, in his work as a member of parliament. There are some members of parliament who are there for the wrong reasons, let's say. Ken was not one of those people. He cared about people. And so along with the entire hockey world, we mourn his passing. He had a lot of ties to the province of Manitoba. A lot of family of his was still here in rural Manitoba and in Winnipeg, and he loved Manitoba dearly and frequently came back to visit. So we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the passing of Ken Dryden this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Gone far too soon at the age of, if I'm not mistaken, 76. Another somebody who falls victim to cancer. So we will miss Ken Dryden. We will miss his writings on the hockey, and of course, we will miss him in society as well. Much more to come. More hockey talk. More Jets talk. It is the Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel and Dave Minuk. Oh, as he's back. He disappeared briefly during the commercial break, but he's now back. I think, 34 minutes is, for those keeping track, for our first technical difficulties of the year.
I had to check on my Apple Crisp, Drew.
Oh, and how is it coming?
Yeah, it's I've got about 10 minutes left in the oven. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just that's fine. If you ever need to jump off to take care of any dessert related baking, then that's perfectly reasonable. Anyways, welcome back. Glad that you were able to join us again. We're back. Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. Of course, brought to you by our friends at Play Now. They return as the title sponsor of our program for yet another year. Big thank you to our friends at Play Now for their continued support. You know that that Play Now is the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Gabe Vilardi, he was the other big sort of signing which happened after we concluded and went on our summer hiatus. It's a 6-year contract extension for Gabe Vilardi, $7.5 million. So, you have Dylan Sandberg, who goes for the 3 years, the shorter term deal. You have Vilardi who goes for the longer term deal, I can't help but think that maybe that decision making had something to do with his injury history, which makes a lot of sense. You take the bird in the hand when you've had some injury trouble previously in your career. But $7.5 million for Gabe Vilardi, just an absolute huge, impactful player for the Winnipeg Jets, playing on that top line with Scheifele, with Connor. We know about his power play prowess as well, which was a key factor for the Winnipeg Jets in succeeding last season. Nothing to dislike about this Gabe Vilardi contract, especially if his trajectory continues to point upward, like it seemed like it did last year when he played his 71 games for the Jets before getting injured late in the year.
Well, Drew, you mentioned, the 71 games and his injury problems, and I think, some people criticized the contract for that reason, but I certainly wasn't one of them. I think it's a great contract. I'm a big fan of Gabe Vilardi's game, and he's obviously coming off of a career year, right? You mentioned, he is a very, very important piece of the power play, right? We've talked about it so many times. He's like that secret weapon, and the Jets power play definitely struggled when he was out of the lineup, right, guys? Mm-hmm. So I think that it makes a lot of sense to lock him up, especially after you lose Nick Ehlers, right? Sure. You lose a very talented winger. You don't want to be in a situation where I don't think a bridge deal, a 2 or 3 year deal was really ever an option here, guys. Like I really always thought it was going to be around 5-6 years. I wasn't necessarily convinced it was going to be like a max 8-year deal or anything like that. But I think that the amount of money he's getting paid is commensurate with the type of player he is. Yeah. He's a very talented player, and I think the Jets are gonna need him to be very similar, if not better, than last year. There's gonna be even, I think, more reliance on that top Scheifele, Connor, Vilardi line, considering that we don't even know what the second line is gonna look like, right? Like we can project it, we can say, we think it's gonna be Johnny Taves, Gus Nyquist, and Cole Perfetti, but Brad Lambert could be on that second line. I mean, it's possible other players are on that second line. So I think Vilardi is a huge part. He's now a big part of the core of this team, right? Along with Scheifele, along with Connor, along with Lowry and Morrissey and all the other players. I mean, he's the top line right winger on this team. So I think when this contract was announced, most Jets fans were very happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly what you said there. He is, for a while there, when they acquired him from LA, everyone was excited about him. But I think that this is probably the year, again, his health. Let's assume he's going to stay healthy, because you always want players to stay healthy. But I think that with this contract, this is a player now, Dave, Gabe Vilardi, who the Jets are going to rely upon to maybe even take an additional step forward and maybe even become more vocal and more of a driver for this team. To be perfectly honest, a lot of his impact is primarily power play related. That's not to say that he's a one-trick pony, because he's not. But, when you talk about guys who are 5-on-5 drivers, Gabe Vilardi is not sort of front of mind when it comes to that. That's not necessarily the role that he's played for this team. But his ability to knock down pucks, his ability to do things in tight spaces is a unique skill set, I would say, on this team. And I think the Jets are going to now hope for and almost expect more from him as he develops in this new 6-year deal.
I'll be honest. I had no expectation when it came to this contract that it was going to be of that term, to be honest with you. I wasn't certain. And to be honest, Gabe Vilardi didn't really reveal much. He keeps things close to the vest. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that we had any sort of indication. But then you talk, when we did talk to him back in July, these are some of the comments from him. I've been here for 2 years and I love it. Okay, that's one of the comments. I love Winnipeg. It's a great spot. Feels like home. Another one said it wasn't one thing that convinced him to stay in Winnipeg for 6 more years. It was a multitude of things, including reminding him of his hometown of Kingston. He said the people, the fans, his teammates called it very homey. But here's another one when he was talking about the contract negotiations. From the end of the season, whenever I started thinking about this stuff, it was never in any questions for me. I always wanted to be back in Winnipeg. And Drew, you talk about the contract and having more to give. One of his key comments when we spoke to him back in July was, I want people to look at this contract and think, wow, what a deal that Winnipeg is getting for me. Mm-hmm. So you don't see that and be like, okay, well, I'm going to rest on my laurels next
Well,
year.
he
and be
knows
like,
how much Winnipeggers like deals, Dave. That's why he said that.
Oh, absolutely. If there's no province likes a good deal more
He's
than
like,
Manitoba.
if you think there's deals at Giant Tiger, just wait till the 4th year of this contract.
But that's the point, though, because again, you can sit back and again, it's easy to say words in July. We'll see what his season looks like this year, next year, the year after. But he is a guy who I think is going to be motivated because of the idea that is that too much money. I mean, I think that was fair. I think that, especially given the term, it made a lot of sense. But it's interesting to see that you can see he's very motivated. He's motivated to have continued his trajectory, Drew, as you said, a guy who the organization expects to continue to give more and to continue to be more. So I think that's interesting. And again, he's another guy who, as we've discussed with the guys from yesterday, when I asked him about what can Jonathan Toews bring, he said he's won 3 cups. He knows what it takes. I think it's good for us in the locker room, on the ice. So again, that's that idea, Drew, right? In the locker room, but also off the ice. Mm-hmm. And I think that, Gabe Vilardi gets it. I think a lot of guys get it. So, I think it's a really good deal. I think it's just another signing of a guy who, look, he's coming from California, living the Cali life, Ezzy. You're familiar with that, of course. When you used to surf back in the day. And
I went there on my honeymoon. That's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, you understand.
How'd that work out?
Well, you understand that it's all about being on the beach and that sunny lifestyle. You get the sun in Manitoba. You don't necessarily. Well, you can go to Grand Beach. You can go to Winnipeg Beach, but you just don't go in December. But
shout out to Hillside Beach. Hillside Beach is my beach.
That's true. You're on the east side of Lake Winnipeg. We're on the west side. But the fact of the matter is,
I'm on no side.
Yeah, Drew's on nothing. Drew stays in Winnipeg. But look, it comes down to here's a guy who I feel like is going to be very motivated next year and beyond to continue to develop into the player that he's just a guy he plays with a chip on his shoulder. He really does. And you just sense it. And I don't find that there's any umbrage when he's talking to us. He can be a little prickly sometimes, but I just feel like there's a guy who is, I guess, almost like he needs to prove himself to the league that he is a premier player. Well, he's getting paid as such to be a first liner with the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to see if that bears fruit.
Well, it's
not Ezzy's type of apple fruit, not general fruit.
I should probably check on the apple crisp, by the way.
The crisp might be getting a little bit toasty on the edges. We're not sure yet. But, again, for what it's worth, I know that a lot of these, the Athletic does it, Jay Fresh does it. A lot of the guys who are analytically bent, put out market value of a player based on numbers. And so when the Jets signed Gabe Vilardi, according to Dom Lucian, and he knows his stuff and looks at it in different lens than I necessarily do, but I'll give him credit for that. The market value on a guy like Vilardi is $9.6 million a year, and the Jets can get him at $7.5 million a year. That's value. I mean, that's simple.
I wonder how much of that, though, Drew, is factoring in where the salary cap is going. Like, I wonder if they factored that into their models or anything like that, because I could see that when the cap is at like 115 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think
Vilardi
does take into account percentage of the cap.
Yeah, like I think Vilardi's contract. I don't think he's either underpaid or overpaid. I think that's exactly kind of right around. Like, I haven't done like a deep dive on comparables or anything like that, but it seems like that's look, 61 points was his career high. We talked about it, right? I don't think was it his career high in goals? Yeah, it was, right, Dave?
For Vilardi, I believe
he have 26 or 27 goals.
27 goals.
I agree, though, that I think there's room for growth there. And when you consider that, he did miss some games last year. What did he miss? 12 games or something like that last year?
11 games.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still think, I'm still thinking 35, 70 is realistic for him.
Yeah,
everything by the way, everything last year was a career high.
Yeah, I agree with you though, Ezzy, that I think that there's more meat on the bone for Gabe Vilardi. We haven't seen him at his peak yet. I think there's still more development to come, and there's still higher and loftier personal statistics that are available to him. And I think the Jets, to some extent, they're not even banking on that. $7.5 million is reasonable for what he did last year. So if that's where he plateaus at $7.5 million with a huge impact on your team on the power play, and not a detriment on defense or anything, I think the Jets will take, okay, we're pleased with that. That's fine. But then if they can even extract more from him, if he has more to give, and if he continues to develop, then the contract even looks better as it goes on. And I think that's what I think that possibility is certainly still, not to say that it's a guarantee, but I would say it's probable that there might be even more for him to give, as his career moves on.
And boys, if we're just looking at points, Kyle Connor had his career year, 97 points last year, 28 years old. And Mark Scheifele at 32 years old had his career year with 87 points, right? Like, so again, that doesn't necessarily mean that Gabe Vilardi is going to have his career year this year. But I'm just saying that there's reason to believe that his best offensive years are in front of him, right? 26 years old is young. Like, it's so funny. Like, we often, once a guy hits his like mid 20s or late 20s, like, it's like, oh, the guy is what he is. He can't get any better, right, Dave?
Yeah.
But a guy like Vilardi is still relatively young, and he's got a lot of hockey to play. So I think Jets fans should be really excited about the possibility. I mean, this could be a 270 point line this year. Really, it could.
Yeah, 90 points a player. I mean, that would be certainly the Jets would sign up for that, no questions asked. Right now, that would.
I was thinking more 100, 170, but
okay,
that's
fine. Whatever way you want to split it, 270.
As are you making a bold prediction? The first ever 100-point season for a player in the Winnipeg Jets.
I am.
2.0?
I am.
Okay. Do you want to say which player is going to get that 100 points? Or are you just going to?
It's going to be KFC. KFC is going to hit 105 this year.
Okay, fair enough. As you mark it down, September 6th, 9:46 a.m. Ezzy with his first bold prediction. Good thing we don't keep track of these or anything.
Yeah,
because it would be.
The chat will remember. The
chat There's no Excel spreadsheet for these predictions.
The chat can keep track of our bold predictions, and we'll go back to them throughout the course of the year to see how accurate or inaccurate they are. But also another thing about Gabe Vilardi, I think that he brings a unique skill set to the Jets. I mean, the Jets don't have a lot of players that perform on the ice in the manner that he does. Scheifele and Connor, we know they're much more, they're skill players. They're off the rush kind of guys. They're, Connor with his deadly shot and things like that. Vilardi is a different player than the two of them, but he complements them well. So I think that's also an interesting aspect that the Jets can bring for him, that he's not a one-trick pony. It diversifies the line a little bit in how they perform on the ice.
Yeah, I think ultimately, guys, what it comes down to here is you're locking up a player that is going to be a big part of your top line. Could play on the second line, but obviously had a lot of success with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And also, I think you have to factor in the uncertainty. Kyle Connor, obviously, we expect to sign a long-term contract.
Well, let's talk about that.
Sure. I was just going to say the uncertainty of the rest of the lineup, right? Because, Cole Perfetti's in a contract year. Dave mentioned that right before we went off air in the summer. He's obviously motivated to have a big season, and I think he will have a big season. But I think you have to also look at it through that lens, the Vilardi contract, that the Jets, even though they have their top line pretty much locked up, and we expect Kyle Connor to sign a long-term contract at some point. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do we? What are our feelings about Kyle Connor? We know the Jets they let Nikolai Ehlers play out the contract and walk in unrestricted free agency.
That just can't happen, though, with Connor, Drew. That would be franchise altering in a horrible way.
Okay, so then, does a contract get done with Kyle Connor before the season starts, mid-season? Connor McDavid's going to get all the headlines, of course, all season long until he signs. And he should, because he's the best player in the league. But Kyle Connor is certainly, he's a top 10 goal scorer in this league. He would be of huge value to any team that could begin to even consider talking to him. So, how do the Jets have to handle the Kyle Connor contract situation, as the season begins to unfold here?
Well,
go ahead, Dave. Start it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I don't think there's any, you don't allow a Nikolai Ehlers situation happen in 2 years in a row. You just can't from an organizational standpoint. If Kyle Connor isn't prepared to commit long-term to the franchise, and we have no reason to believe he isn't for the record, then you have to deal him. You cannot have a situation where you lose him just to go on a run. Like, It's just unrealistic. I'm not saying you deal him for spare parts. I'm not saying you deal him for picks. I'm saying you'd have to deal him for a need, maybe a top pairing right side defenseman or something of that nature. But the fact of the matter is, guys, you cannot afford to lose a player of that caliber for the second year in a row for nothing. So my guess, to be honest with you,
I'm more concerned that if they get to the point where they're trading him, Dave has a 97-point player being traded for a defenseman.
I'm not saying
that's a little bit more concerning to me.
I'm not saying it's the only need, Ezzy. I'm saying but that's a big
I hope
need.
that defenseman can also score 97 points, Dave.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that in order to get a top pairing defenseman, you're going to have to give something up. But I'm just saying that's what the Jets, that's in my mind.
So you're saying they can't let him walk.
Can't let him walk. Of course not. I mean, I'm using an extreme example which has called me on, but the fact of the matter is that, ultimately you cannot afford to have a player leave your organization at this point. I mean, he scores more goals than anybody else. He's a guy who is a perennial 50-goal scorer or has the ability to score 50
threat
goals.
To score 50.
Yeah, every single season. So the fact of the matter is you don't have anybody else on this team who does what he does. And so the fact of the matter is that you can't afford as an organization. And to be honest with you, what I was going to say is I think there's a 0% chance that this isn't done. As we've seen with Kevin Cheveldayoff historically, get these things done some point during training camp. Because unlike the Nikolai Ehlers situation, guys, which for the record, we had him, we asked him about the contract situation. He was for the most part left alone. Didn't want to talk about it. Occasionally it came up, but really it wasn't discussed. Now, You're not going to say all this is going to be as a subject of conversation because of what happened with Nikolai Ehlers. So that is a potential huge distraction from your organization's perspective. So my mind, this gets done. He becomes the first 10 million plus signed player. I'm honestly going to guess it's I was actually looking at the numbers, guys, and I was like, I think if he does an 11 million, somewhere to get to his $81 million, his number is 81, somehow get him to an $81 million contract. Because to be honest with you, he's going to be 10 plus. There's no
7 years, 7 years, $11.5 million.
I think it's 11.47 or something like that for him to get 81 million. But I don't see it not happening. Honestly, I think the Jets organization loves him. It's a function of whether he wants to sign for essentially the rest of his career in Winnipeg and do that. And if he's prepared to do it, I think the organization is going to sign him. And I think, like I said, he'll be the first guy who's making north of 10 million.
And isn't that when Josh Morrissey signed as well, Dave? He signed right around towards the end of training camp, right?
So did Blake Wheeler back then.
Blake Wheeler, right? So it kind of makes sense that kind of late September is when we expect Connor to sign. And I think it just ultimately comes down to what Dave said, right? You have such a talented player that is irreplaceable. You're just not going to acquire a player like Kyle Connor via trade or via free agency. And he has spent his entire career, obviously, with the Jets. All indications are that this is going to be, a contract that's signed within the next month or so.
Well, you guys are more confident than I am.
To see if it's. I'm going to be interested to see if it's does he sign a 4 or 5 year deal, perhaps, as opposed to a 7 or 8 year deal? Knowing that the salary cap is going to go up, obviously, it's going to go up even more. But I'm just not. I think he signs, but I'm not sure if it's an 8 year or 7 year deal. I could see it being a 4 or 5 year deal.
I mean, you guys are more confident than I am, I'll be honest. I don't know. I mean, I know that he's said all the right things, and there's no animus between him and the organization or anything like that. He's not a malcontent who doesn't like Winnipeg and is looking for the first train out of town or anything along those lines. But, as you're sitting here, when you are as skilled as he is, I wonder just how tantalizing it becomes to wait to see what, what else is out there until, you get the exact number that you want. And I mean, you're talking, 10.5 or whatever. You look at the cap, you look at some of these other salaries, I don't know that they can get him for $10.5 million. I mean, Kevin Cheveldayoff has been, a wizard when it comes to getting guys to sign what I would describe as below market value for some of them.
Drew, are you saying that Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele are underpaid at $8.5 million?
Yes. Yes, I am willing to go out on a limb and say that they are underpaid at $8.5 million, and Josh Morrissey is underpaid at $6.25 million as well. So there's no question about it.
That's a good segment. What should Josh Morrissey actually be making? Because I think you could argue $10 million.
But
Sure,
look
you're
at
top-
the deal Mitch Marner got with Vegas. 8 years, $96 million.
Okay, $12 million a year.
Right. So
Yeah.
I mean, now Mitch Marner's produced more points than Kyle Connor. There's no
I
question.
would
about
argue Kyle Connor's have been a more impactful player than Mitch Marner.
for sure. And again, like where are you replacing that in the lineup? Now, obviously, if you have to trade Kyle Connor, as he said, you'd be wanting to get back. It's kind of like almost like the Nakes for the for Ehlers back when there was that talk of trying to find some sort of comparable piece to deal with guys who are not necessarily content in their present situations. Again, to be clear, I don't think Kyle Connor is in that same boat, but yeah, like I again, like I said, I'm just saying that if Mitch Marner is signing for $12 million a season, that 8-year deal, and again, like I know what it is saying about 4 or 5 years because then you're not committing and you don't have to. But if you're Kyle Connor and you are the age you are, you're again.
This
I
is
can't
your
see,
big money. This is your big money contract.
And remember, this is the last opportunity to sign that 8-year deal, right? Because after next year, it is no longer 8 years; it's 7-year max with the team you're with, or 6 years with a new team. So, I mean, you can get an 8-year deal, and we look. There's not that Dustin Byfuglien isn't the most unique guy in the history of this game, probably. And he walked away from, what was it, $14 million in his final couple of years. But the fact of the matter is that if you're Kyle Connor and you can tack on an extra $24 million or $22 million at the end of, in your mid to late 30s.
Especially in this economy, Dave.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's worrying about the economy, considering he's already got a $59 million contract in his back pocket, that he's coming to an end with this year. But I just think that if you're him and you can have that 7 or 8 year deal with Winnipeg, again, provided that you believe that window of 4 or 5 years, and this Jets team has shown that, sure, they can have a bump in the road where they take a step back for 1 year, but they usually are pretty good at kind of resetting and refilling and getting things back on track and contending, at least in theory, contending again. So I don't know, like I would say I'm not going to Ginsburg confidently say this is my number, but my guess is that it fits at that 11. I'm going to go 11.47 times 7.
Wow, very exact.
81 million, boys.
So again, if you want to look at past history,
hold on, Drew. Write that down. So when it does happen, Ezzy, I'm going to clip it. I'm going to play it like when I predicted Dallas. Let's go.
I'm not writing anything down.
Dave's usually pretty good with the numbers. Actually, I think he was pretty bang on with Velarde, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he's right.
If you're looking at past history to predict, future behavior, worth noting that Velarde and Scheifele both come up as unrestricted free agents after the 2031 season. So maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff tries to structure Kyle Connor in a similar manner, where his contract would also expire at that year. That would mean it would be a 6-year contract extension. I guess actually technically it would be a 5-year extension because he's under contract for this year. So starting next year, it would be a 5-year deal if his contract were to expire at the same time as Scheifele and Velarde would after the 2031 season. I mean, time will tell, of course, but that has got to be. I don't think the Jets want to start the year or get too far down in the year with this sort of hanging there. Adam Lowry's a little bit different. Lowry's also pending unrestricted free agent after this year, but I don't expect that contract to be a particularly difficult one to negotiate. He's the captain of the team. We all know, the ties that bind between Adam Lowry and the Jets organization. I wouldn't expect that to be a particularly contentious negotiation.
Everything points towards Lowry finishing his career as a Jet, right?
I would think so.
I mean, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to sign a contract before the season starts either, right? You'd think that the Jets would want to get that done as well.
I would think so. I'll tell you what, we'll talk more about this with our next guest, Murat Atesh of The Athletic. He's going to join us for hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's our season premiere. Season 17 of this fine program continues. Dave Minuk in the top right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle, and I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Murat Atesh of The Athletic up next. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. We're thrilled to welcome back to the program our very good friend. We haven't seen him all summer, so it's nice to see him. World traveler Murat Atesh joining us here on the program. Good friend, good sir, welcome back. How are you? How was the summer months?
Drew, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be back. Happy to kick off year 17. Is that right?
That is right. We are old and decrepit.
Well, you've made it to year Lowry, and it is my goal today not to be so horrible that you don't make it to year little in terms of numbers. Summer was great. I actually saw Dave Minuk just yesterday at the arena. Got to have a little hang with Dave Minuk. That was a treat.
Now, does he give you a hug when he sees you?
I don't think there was a hug, Dave.
I think it was a fist bump. I think we did
fist
bumps.
Bump. No, it was enthusiastic. I felt welcome to be there. You know,
Rod, the question I have
in this world.
I have a question for you though. Was Dave wearing shorts?
I don't know, Dave. Were you?
I was not actually. I was actually shocking that I was wearing jeans yesterday.
Yeah, you're one of those, like, I don't know. I was gonna call you a psychopath because you can like sandals and shorts in arena, and like, I don't know if it's the Turkish ancestry or what have you, but you know, I cannot do these things. I'm sure you're out barbecuing in sandals in winter and things like that.
Remember the guy who would only wear shorts until the Bombers won the Grey Cup? Dave's doing that. Dave's following that path, I think.
I see. I mean, look, it's inspiring. I'm amazed by the strength. But no, I guess not yesterday. Guys, summer was awesome. Summer was really great. I went to Turkey for basically a month, and that meant seeing my dad. That meant seeing cousins and aunts and uncles and all sorts of people who, you know, like, I'm actually from a big family, even though I don't have one exactly in Winnipeg. My mom moved there last winter. So if anybody out there was thinking, like, where are the mom takes on Twitter? It was because she was in a time zone that made watching the Jets tough. She had to sort of catch up at playoff time.
I was in Pinawa a couple times during the summer, and it felt a little bit different, but now I know why it felt a little bit different. In any event, you were at the arena yesterday. You mentioned that. You saw Dave. You mentioned that part. Not a hug, but a fist bump. That's okay as well. You saw Adam Lowry on the ice, though. And so that's obviously of interest to the Winnipeg Jets fans, given that we know that he's allegedly not going to start the season. And I mean, we don't know how his recovery is going, but what were your impressions of seeing Adam Lowry on the ice at the Hockey for All Center?
Yeah, first and foremost, just great to see it. Coming off of hip surgery, and I'm under the impression that's something he's battled for a couple of years, and then it just got to a point this year where he had to do it. So, you really wonder what's that recovery going to look like. Yesterday, I'm not going to say he was positively flying around. He's not even shooting a whole bunch yet, but he's skating, he's moving. I think I described it on Twitter as moving tenderly, but he's mobile. And that's my impression of it. I don't know how it feels to be him. We didn't get a chance to talk. It was just a case of being happy to see the captain out there. When does he get into group skates? When does he get into practices and all that? I don't know. It doesn't look like that's a tomorrow kind of thing. Still, an important piece of the Winnipeg Jets, and good to see him at the rink.
Rod, we got to talk about your fan survey. There were 2 parts for The Athletic. We linked it on illegalcurve.com. Obviously, there was a ton of questions there, a lot of data. I screenshot. I obviously can't get into all the questions, but I screenshotted a few. The one I wanted to ask you about was the question where you asked, what do you view as a realistic expectation for Jonathan Toews? Because obviously Jonathan Toews is a player that a lot of people are talking about right now, and for a lot of reasons. Obviously his pedigree, the fact that he's been off a couple years. The most common answer, almost 50%, it was 48.2%, was people expect him to be a quality third-line center regardless of games played. And I believe you put that in there because of the fact that there's the bonuses in his contract, and it's not guaranteed that he's going to play a full season based on some of his injury past, right? But I'm obviously not going to ask you about the second line, third line center thing, because obviously that's going to be something that we're going to learn whether he's got that. But do you think there's too much of a fixation on that, whether he's going to be the 2C or whatever, as opposed to the impact that he's going to have on the team on and off the ice?
I mean, I guess part of the Winnipeg Jets bet is on the leadership and the Stanley Cups and the Conn Smythe and the Olympic gold and the World Junior gold and the World Cup of Hockey gold and whatever else you can name. I'm sure he's probably won that as well. And I think that that's part of the bet. But I don't think they brought Jonathan Toews in to be a fourth line center. I don't think that the hope is anything like that. And honestly, I think the question of how well can he play hockey after 37 years of age, for one, being away from the game for as long as he's been, for two, and then kind of coming back from a health situation that, is unique in terms of the NHL and his long COVID and complications and things that I don't necessarily understand. And then to come back after a unique health journey, I think how good he is, or what level he can reach, whether it's in October or by the end of the season or even into the playoffs, is one of the biggest questions facing the Jets this year. Because if he can get to a level reminiscent, let's not even joke about first line center Conn Smythe type quality, but if he can get to reminiscent a second line center quality, third line center quality, and he's winning those minutes, I mean that would be a huge boon for the Winnipeg Jets. It's just been so long, and he's been through so much. It's really tough to know.
Well, Murat, you were not on with us just before you came on with us, I should say. We were discussing the Kyle Connor situation as to what we think is going to happen. So we'll bring you into that discussion and ask you your thoughts. I personally don't believe the Jets can afford to have another Nikolai Ehlers type of situation transpire with Connor. So how do you see this playing out? Do you see this getting done in training camp, or could you see this extending into the regular season?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm not honestly sure about the timeline for it. I'm certain it's a top priority for the Winnipeg Jets, and has been for literal years. I think this is a moment they've been planning for. I think Kyle Connor is very important to the organization. He's part of the that group of Jets that loves the outdoors and loves to fish and all that sort of stuff. He's part of the team culture that way. He's been adored by his line mates since Blake Wheeler told Paul Maurice, hey, look, just give me the kid back in 2018, pardon me. And really, realistically, his role has been just enormous. And he plays top line minutes, and he plays first power play. He sometimes plays PK. And he's really somebody that now Scott Arniel and Kevin Cheveldayoff and everybody believe that when the moment comes, when playoffs hit, when there's going to be a big goal that needs to be scored, he's going to be a part of it. And so I think Winnipeg is even more fully all in on a Kyle Connor situation in a way that, say, with Ehlers last year, that, like, I don't know. I mean, Ehlers has a big part to do with that as well. But at this point last season, I wasn't anticipating a long-term Ehlers extension. I think it's possible for Kyle Connor. And I think that there's a lot of reasons to think that that he could be happy here and has been happy in Winnipeg. And I think that they're going to make him a number one priority. Does that mean before camp? I don't know. We've seen it before. We've seen it with Blake Wheeler in 2018, heading into 2018-19 or what have you, doing it early. But each situation is its own. The cap is sort of skyrocketing right now, and there may be some good financial reasons for him to just wait and see what other people get over the course of the year too.
Murat Atesh, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Murat does great work, as you all well know, for our friends at The Athletic. You mentioned in the previous answer, you mentioned the name of Scott Arniel, the Winnipeg Jets head coach. And when he was hired as the head coach, there were a lot of people who were maybe looking at his Columbus tenure and being cautious and saying, I don't know about that hire. Well, I think those people have gone by the wayside after last season with the Winnipeg Jets. But what does he do? What's his approach, do you think, for training camp and for the start of this year? We remember last year, the start was incredible, historic for the Winnipeg Jets, basically cemented themselves as a playoff team within the first 15, 16 games of last season. How does Scott Arniel approach this training camp, do you think, for the Winnipeg Jets as their head man?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to him kind of at length before last season. And it was kind of, we talked about analytics. We talked about the season before that, which had been very good until the playoffs against Colorado. And the sense that I got from him at that time was just hunger. Like this idea that no matter how good we were at what, we're going to look at every aspect of this team and try to figure out ways to make it even better heading into next season. And he spoke confidently, and he spoke like somebody who was really hungry to get that taste of head coaching again. And while Winnipeg had a tremendous season, he was a Jack Adams finalist, finished second. So many good things came from coaching, the power play especially, the 5-on-5 defense, all of it. Like a lot of that is systemic. And I think that what Jets fans should hope is that he's exactly as hungry today as he was a year ago at this time, that there's no resting on laurels, that there's no President's Trophy hangover, that there's the same exact hunger to take every aspect of the Winnipeg Jets to the next level that there was a year ago. And I think that that's the sort of person he was. I don't think he was out of the head coaching game for as long as he was to come back and have one good year and sit. The challenge is going to be, well, what if Winnipeg gets the bad bounces and doesn't get off to a good start? Like the Winnipeg Jets, because of what you mentioned, the historic, the 15-0-1, they never had to get punched in the mouth mid-season. It was just not something that they had to do and overcome. And so, being prepared to face and overcome things that maybe he didn't even have to face last year, while also trying to push things ahead.
Murat, I'm going to go back to the fan survey. And by the way, if you can hook me up with one of those Athletic hoodies, that would be pretty awesome. I mean, look how good that looks. Maybe it just looks good on you. I don't know if it would look as good on me, but one of the other questions that I thought was really interesting was your question: which of these does Winnipeg's coaching staff handle best? And the second least, the second lowest answer, so the second lowest percentage, 7.3, if I can get this right, thought that optimizing lines, pairings, and matchups, whereas 40.1% thought that the Winnipeg coaching staff does the best job at even strength tactics, systems, and strategies. So my question for you is, why do you think fans don't think higher of the Jets coaching staff's ability to optimize lines, pairings, and matchups? Because obviously they won the President's Trophy. They almost went to the Western Conference Final. So obviously they do a pretty good job. But where do you think this comes from when it comes to Jets fans?
I mean, part of it is math, I think, because how many options did I give in that pick? In that question, was it 5?
There were 5. Yeah.
5.
So if any strength is going to climb above 20%, then some other strength has to fall below it, right? Like, if every possible option I gave them to pick a coaching strength was voted equally and everybody was exactly torn on what 5 options, it'd be 20 to 20 to 20 to 20. So for anything to get 40, something else has to suffer. But the other part is, I think that at least when you look at the sort of most critical voices in the fan community, hey, the Jets are good, but they could be even better. I think that line combinations is what gets pointed to quite a bit. And last year at this time, it was, why doesn't Ehlers get more minutes? And I guess he did get more, but still kind of second, third line type minutes at 5-on-5, like 9th most in the playoffs. So there's a vocal section of the fan base that looks at decisions like that and says, hey, well, that's a really good player, play him more. Logan Stanley came under fire last season. There's been a lot of like, hey, why is there a veteran logjam on defense situation? I think that most people, and you see it throughout the survey, most people are quite happy with what the Winnipeg Jets did and are doing. But those who see room to improve are saying, well, hey, there's some individual personnel decisions that I actually can't get behind.
So my question for you is, if you look at this unit, and we know the number of this organization now has a lot of depth, both at the NHL and AHL level. But from your perspective, if a player is going to break through and get to that next level from the prospect pool, is it Nikita Chibrikov? Is it Brad Lambert? Is it someone else? Who do you see potentially? And I know it's a hard question to ask because you haven't seen them all summer. You don't even have the opportunity to have seen them next week when we will at the ahead of the prospect showcase. But just from kind of your early assessment, do you have a kind of a favorite yet as to who you think? I mean, I shouldn't say that, Murat, because we did see Nikita Chibrikov. We just haven't seen Brad Lambert yet.
Yeah, it's a great question because I think Jets fans are ready for that next wave, the wave that's going to extend the window, the wave that's going to like Cole Perfetti is 23 right now, turns 24 in January, and he's the youngest everyday player on the team. And that's kind of uncommon in the NHL, I think. So I think fans are excited about it. When I look at the roster, though, from like forward number 1 to 13 or 14, I can find NHL veterans enough to make it tough to win a job. And when you look at the defense, you can go 8 deep before you get to even Ville Heinola, I think, and then Elias Salomonsson after that or what have you, if you go by, a guess at a depth chart. So it's going to be tough, I think, and it's kind of Murat Downer moment. And I've answered this question a couple times this week. I don't see the path to everyday NHL minutes for a young player right now. Mm-hmm. At the same time, who's it going to be if it's somebody? It's Brad Lambert if he pops. Like if he can show that dynamic speed that the forward group is missing without Nikolai Ehlers and find chemistry. Perhaps he gets a couple of camp shifts with a Jonathan Taves, with a Cole Perfetti, with a somebody who's going to be in a top 6 offensive role and shows that, hey, last year with the Moose, my numbers were down, but I'm a great player. I can contribute at this level. If he does that, maybe there's a midseason call-up coming, and it would be his job not to let anybody send him back down. Nikita Chibrikov's probably the more multi-talented or multi-tool version of that player. Mm-hmm. Not nearly as fast, but has offensive ability, likes to get his nose dirty a little bit, takes hits to get pucks over the blue line or keep pucks in at the line. And he's more likely to survive a bottom 6 type of role or transition, I think, into the NHL. And then, Elias Salomonsson has too many veterans in front of him, I think. But boy, oh boy, did he have a great debut season when he was healthy last year. So, gosh, it's hard to see who and how, but those are the ones that I think that we should be thinking about.
Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's brought to you by our friends at Play Now. Don't bet on illegal sites. Bet with Play Now instead. Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site. 18+. Enjoy responsibly. Murat Atesh is our guest here on the program. We were talking before you joined us, Murat, about Gabe Vilardi and the contract he signed. He took the 6-year deal. Dylan Sandberg went a little bit shorter, but Vilardi took the 6-year contract, to get some real security here in Winnipeg. And we all agreed that that, the contract he signed was a good value when he signed it, but there's also even more meat on the bone for him to improve as a player and as a contributor to the Winnipeg Jets, which might even add extra value to that contract. What do you think is fair to expect from Gabe Vilardi, assuming health, as he enters this next season as a member of the Winnipeg Jets and with the contract now firmly in his back pocket?
Yeah, I think an incremental improvement would make a lot of sense. He gets a big role. He's been a first-line player with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. They have chemistry. They see the game in similar ways. And I've had a chance to talk to, Scheifele last season, kind of just not a formal interview, just a chat about all the different things that he admires about Vilardi's game. And he says he sort of sees the game like I do. And when he said that, he was absolutely beaming, right? Like it's something that he's really pleased with. So Vilardi's had a good situation in terms of his line mates. That first power play, last year's power play has so many options that it's tough to call Vilardi the quarterback. But I continue to think that Scheifele puts the puck in Vilardi's hands, and then the power play has is at its most dangerous. So I'm not necessarily expecting a points per game skyrocket from the player. I think it would be great to see incremental improvement as he continues to develop through his 20s. Maybe more consistency on the power play. It sort of tapered off at the very end of the season. And then, of course, he was hurt again. So a healthy season would be a huge boon. I think that it's great for the Jets that he found peace of mind in a 6-year deal, because I think it's a place that, he's not going to be doubling his point rate every year, but it's a place he can continue to grow.
Rod, don't be shocked, but I'm going back to the Jets fan survey on The Athletic. I'm not sure if this is part 1 or part 2, but I thought...
Are you getting paid on the side to do this? What's happening here?
I wish.
Just appreciating the logo. He's naming the survey. We like this.
No, in fact, I pay The Athletic to read Murat's work, Drew.
That's good of you. That's very... Are you angling for Murat's job? I'm not sure what's happening right now.
No. I could not do Murat's job.
We are willing to make that trade, by the way. No questions asked. The trade can be 1-for-1.
I am nowhere near the writer that Murat is. But here, this is the question. Did Winnipeg's round 1 win slay those demons? And I thought this was really interesting. 53% said no, which maybe some people wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that shows you that people are very divided, right? It's very close to 50%. And again, it's tough to quantify that, right? Like, obviously we won't really know that, unless the Jets go deeper into the playoffs, right? Like, that's the ultimate goal. But the question I wanted to ask you is, if the Jets didn't slay their first round demons, what did it do? Because as far as I'm concerned, it always helps you when you win a playoff round, especially we know the Jets have lost many times in the first round, whether that's against St. Louis or Colorado or Vegas. I mean, everybody knows, right? Doesn't that mean something, right? Like, the way I look at it is like, the Jets, we can't expect them to win the President's Trophy, but if the Jets are a playoff team, which we expect them to be, and the Jets are in a situation where they're down late in the series, I mean, things like this, to me, this will benefit them in the future. But I guess that's a long way of asking you, were you surprised at that particular question, the answers that you got for that part of the fan survey?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, because the question right before it is, did the Winnipeg Jets have playoff demons to slay? And almost everybody says yes. And I think that makes sense based on the history you just described of not getting out of the first round. Excuse me. And then to say, well, did they slay those demons? And that Game 7, the Manitoba Miracle, I think, might have been said on a legal curve first. I don't know who used that phrase first. Was it you guys?
I'll take credit for it.
Sure. Wow.
We're not above stealing other people's work.
No. It wasn't us, Murat. We'd like to pretend we're that smart, but it wasn't us.
Pardon me. All right.
No, it was us. It was us. Give us the credit. We'll take it.
Dave's built an entire brand based on taking other people's work and posting it online.
Yeah, we got a T-shirt for you.
The surprise for me was that, roughly half, whether at 53, 47, whatever those numbers are, for me, it's more or less 50-50. We're talking about 1,000 people who voted. And for there to be a half, even, or slightly more than half of people saying, well, that actually wasn't enough, did surprise me. And I think one of the biggest surprises was being somebody whose job is to be in that room, and to hear somebody like Adam Lowry talk about how, now they don't have to answer those questions anymore. Or like the relief I think that the players felt, that even though they didn't go into the first round saying, hey, we've got demons to slay, it's been really hard for us to get out of the first round. The moment that they did get out of the first round, I think there was a sense of relief in that group. So I think that my perception came from feeling as though the Jets felt they had slayed their first round playoff demons. And so for the fan base to be a little more 50-50, I think it just shows that they want more, that they see what was a President's Trophy winning team, was supposed to do great things in the playoffs, did good things in the playoffs, but there's more layers and 3 more rounds to win before they get their ultimate dream.
Well, with that in mind, Rod, how important is this season going to be for Cole Perfetti? We know it's a contract year for him, but just how important. We saw the Perfetti emergence last year when he had his big hat trick and all that stuff. But from your perspective, given the uncertainty surrounding that second line, we talk about him being a very, like Nikolai Ehlers was a driver. Cole Perfetti, do you think he can become a driver of that line?
I think that he will need chemistry in a way that Ehlers didn't. Like, Ehlers could be a one-man show sometimes, transitioning the puck from one end to the other. Line mates didn't always know what he was going to do, but you could bet that puck would get from one end of the ice to the other more often than not, and you could see it in all the analytics and the points and all that sort of stuff. I think that Cole Perfetti will need to have a sense of chemistry with Jonathan Toews or whoever is his line mate in that situation. I think that, prior to the, I want to be more of a prick out there quote that really just caught fire, I think that he was underrated in terms of his winning battles on the wall. Mm-hmm. This is something he actually worked on with Mark Scheifele, by the way. And I've written about some of the mentor-mentee relationship that they had, going into corners, going into those battles, and knowing that you're the smaller guy, but making the first impact by moving into it. And you saw him sort of arrive at battles, swatting his stick at the other guy's stick, rotating his shoulders, creating ways to create separation from him, pushing off of guys. And there are a lot of subtle things he did that made him better at those little plays that get the puck out of the zone or keep the puck in the zone at the other end than I think he got credit for prior to that run. And I think he started to get some credit towards the end of the year. So in terms of being a driver, I tend to think about analytics. Can you have a positive impact on your line? I think so. But in terms of an explosion of points, he's going to need chemistry for that. He's going to need to see the ice with some offensively talented line mates. And one way that he could have a sensational season is if he is first in line for power play 1 minutes with Nikolai Ehlers out of the picture. There's a chance they put Toews there for faceoffs, but if you're going on pure offensive ability at this stage, probably it's Cole Perfetti, unless Toews surprises us by turning back the clock. And he had success in that role when Ehlers was out at different times last year. That would be the area where this 50-point player could become a 60 to 70-point player if he's getting consistent power play minutes.
Last one for you. 3 new additions up front for the Winnipeg Jets. Gus Nyquist, Tanner Pearson, probably, and Cole Koepke, who I think is probably the most unknown of those 3. What are fair expectations? What are reasonable expectations for those 3 players, at least early on in this season as they get acclimatized to their new environments?
Yeah, so part of me is something clipped. I heard Tanner Pearson and Cole Koepke. Who's the third one that you named?
Gus Nyquist.
Gus Nyquist. Okay. So Nyquist is a wild one. Like a couple years ago, 75 points. That was an explosion out of nowhere. He hadn't done it a whole bunch of times, but 75 points is a crazy total to get in the NHL. That's first line caliber stuff. And if you talk to people who followed him or covered him at that time, they say this is a really intelligent offensive player, sneaky hands, really reads the offensive zone really well. Yes, he's not a fast skater, but he's got all this ability. And then if you talk to people who were around the Minnesota Wild last year, where his point totals were really quite low. In the playoffs, he played 6 games. He got 0 points. And I think he famously went offside that negated a big goal for the Wild too. So the worm just had turned for him there. And the fan base was really dour on him, saying, well, this is one of the slowest players in the NHL. You hear some real criticisms of Nyquist from last year. And I'm like, okay, let's zoom out a little. His on-ice shooting percentage was bad last year. It was freakishly good, the 75 points here, but it was bad last year. There's some gentle regression back. There's probably a middle six offensive contributor there. And if he can play on the second or third line and, put up, I don't know, I'm going to just put a number out without a lot of thought, but like 40 points or more, that's probably a successful season at this stage for Gustav Nyquist, and anything more would be gravy or an indication he played second line or more, depending on chemistry. That's what I'm looking for. For the other guys, Tanner Pearson, Cole Koepke, win an everyday job and keep it, I think. Pearson's a veteran who's been around a lot. We're watching him yesterday, Dave, and we're impressed by, that's a big guy. Like, that's a big meat and potatoes looking hockey player. Winnipeg could use some of that, whether he's, a fourth line player every day or a 13th forward type, I'm not sure. But being an everyday player and cementing that. And Cole Koepke, partly famous for childhood snowbank battles with Neil Pionk at what the Pionk family called the Holiday Cup, which I wrote about once upon a time. He's from that area, right? And so they grew up, and there's a group of families, the Pionks, the Koepkes, the Amets, I don't know if I pronounced that last name correctly, that would get together and play at the Pionk family outdoor rink or on a lake or whatever and have this Holiday Cup situation. So it's cool to see a little Minnesota group continue to grow. For me, I like the energy he plays with. If he can win a fourth line job and be an everyday player, that would be a strength too.
Murat Atesh, a great season premiere episode or season debut, season premiere appearance, easy for me to say, here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. We look forward to another year of your coverage. We look forward to getting together with you throughout the season, as always. And, of course, seeing you in person when we have the opportunity to do so. Fist bumps for Dave. Hugs for me. You know that.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. There you go.
Love you, Murat. Thank you.
Our guest this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Always great to catch up with him. We'll take our final commercial break. When we come back, more on the Winnipeg Jets. Maybe some news to prepare for regarding Illegal Curve merchandise. Dave M., you can prepare an update on that topic for our adoring audience. In any event, don't go anywhere. Much more to come. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
The Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on for this Saturday morning. It's our season premiere, season 17 of this fine program. So nice to see so many of you back at it on this Banjo Bowl Saturday, as we always do. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Set your reminders. Be sure to be here every Saturday morning. Be sure to be here after each and every Winnipeg Jets regular season and playoff game. Remember, we don't work preseason, but be sure to set the Illegal Curve YouTube channel as your must-go-to destination. Dave M., you have news, a little tantalizing preview, a little appetizer, a little amuse-bouche, if you will, regarding merchandise.
Amuse what?
An amuse-bouche. It's French.
Well, bouche means mouth, but what's...
Yes, you amuse your mouth with a little taste, a little bite,
tantalizing,
a little nibble, if you will. You don't have
the host, Desi.
You don't have a full apple. You just have a slice of an apple. It's an amuse of your bouche.
By the way, just to
an imbecile.
We've already got emails for people asking about Ezzy's apple orchard in the backyard. So
people wanting to get his apples?
No, but wanting to know more.
Come to my house. You can have all these crappy apples.
No, but I won't name names. But I did get an email from someone asking the name of the company because evidently they too have an apple problem. So they want to know if they can.
Okay, so if you are in the apple gathering business, please reach out to us at Illegal Curve.
Yes.
And you can set up an encampment in Ezzy's backyard.
No, but maybe make some Illegal Curve cider. That would be that'd be okay. We'd be down with that.
Yeah.
And speaking of Illegal Curve branded things, I will move into this one. We actually got an email about that coincidentally yesterday. Someone wanting to buy a hat for a parent. I won't name a name because I don't want to reveal in case that parent watches our show. But I should say I know the parent watches the show because that's hence the reason why they're getting the gift.
Yeah,
but
they'd be really concerned if they didn't know what the hell Illegal Curve was, and all of a sudden this gift shows up.
Well, no, maybe the kid's a fan. But anyways, ultimately, we will have an Illegal Curve store opening up very soon, and hopefully for the start of the regular season. So there is going to be
it's an online store. It's not a bricks and mortar store.
No, but you will be able to. We're working with a local Winnipeg business, so you will be able to.
We're opening up a bricks and mortar store.
Oh yeah, true. We haven't told you. It's going to be Ezzy's going to be working there during the day. So no, but we will have a place where you can go pick your merch up from. And we're working with a local company, so it should be great. I've already seen some of the designs; they look fantastic. Just getting those finalized right now. So we will have
pumped up about those sweatpants.
Yeah, we got icy sweatpants. We got sweaters.
You have a tendency to wear sweatpants out in public a little too much that we might have to have a conversation about.
I mean, if you're wearing sweatpants in public as much as I do, you obviously have given up.
Yeah, I don't want you to quite give up just yet. I need you to hang on just for dear life for a couple more years, and then you can give up altogether.
But anyway, so it's exciting. We've got, like I said, some new styles, and we've got a bunch of variety of hats, hoodies, t-shirts.
I see fidget spinners,
which I use. That's absolutely truth. But anyways, yeah. So we'll have that up and running hopefully very soon. Hopefully we'll be able to wear some of the stuff to give you an idea of what it will look like in person, and then maybe even at FanFest, hopefully. And then we'll open up the store, and it'll be open for a month. You can order your gear, and then we'll have it ready to go.
Hopefully we're going to be able to ship to Perth, Western Australia, Dave.
Yeah, Jordan is tuning in. Thank God we're back, Jordan says. Tuning in live from Perth in Western Australia. So
I have family in Perth. I have some family in Perth.
What time would it be in Perth? Isn't it like tomorrow? Isn't it like Sunday morning in Perth right now?
Dave, you have family in Perth, and Drew used to work
11:39.
11:39. Okay, I knew.
And by the way, Ezzy, that was a good
one. Yeah, you guys missed my joke there.
I heard it. I liked it. It was.
I didn't know if it was 13 hours ahead in Perth or 14 hours.
Perth, I believe, is in Western Australia.
Okay. Anyways,
So
Jordan.
that's why it's
welcome.
not past midnight, Drew.
Is that where the koala bears are?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask my brother. He went.
Yeah. And Ezzy, why don't you tell the story about what happened when you got a call from the law school in Australia?
Yeah, that's true. I was supposed to I did get accepted into Bond Law School in Australia, and obviously I didn't have money to go to law school in Australia, and then I had a conversation with my dad, and he's like, "There's no way I'm giving you whatever it was, $50,000 or something."
Right.
But it was also I got the call. I got the call during the 2004 World Cup of Hockey.
And what happened?
We were watching it at Richie's house. And the person from the admissions office called me and, wanted to speak to me. And I said, I'll talk to you after the game's over.
What did my Uncle Ray say? Didn't he lose his mind on you?
He probably just said you're an idiot or something.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So for those just tuning in, as he received a call from the law school he wanted to go to and said, I'll call you back. I'm watching hockey. And somehow he didn't actually go to that law school. Shocking turn of events there in its entirety.
I applied at UND Law School and didn't get in either. So.
Alrighty, there you go. There's another. That's a good. So far, we've covered Ezzy's law school aspirations and apple crisps on this morning's program. So we are certainly in. What
Seriously,
I would
though,
say,
Drew, if I know we're going to get back to the hockey talk,
we might not.
Hopefully, I mean, some people are hoping that's the case. But if anybody out there has an apple tree, they know how hard it is to maintain. This apple tree has thousands of apples on it. I'm out there. Like sweeping and also the wasps. I got stung by a wasp the other day because these apples attract wasps. So I think I'm gonna have to call Kildonan Tree Service or something like that and get some of these branches cut off.
So you're gonna prune the trees, or are you gonna get rid of the tree in its?
Well, I'm not gonna do it, Drew. I'm gonna pay someone to do it.
Okay, but are you getting rid of the tree or are you just pruning?
No, I'm not. Drew. Trees give us oxygen. I'm not going to cut down an entire tree. I'm just going to cut down a few of the branches.
See, he really, going back to the start of the show, he really is an arborist.
I love trees.
What are you guys keeping an eye on for training camp? I mean, we are just
right now the show going off the rails. That's what I'm keeping an eye on.
We were talking about it with Marat. I mean, the veterans on this team, there is not a lot of opportunity here. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to probably have to steal a job, especially if you're a young player. You're going to have to probably come in and steal a job from the number of veterans that appear to be ahead of you in the depth chart. For a guy like Nikita Chibrikov, who suffered that really untimely injury last year that sort of derailed the rest of his entire season. So he's now not an afterthought, because that would be too rude of a comment, but he's a guy who has another hill to climb to try and become an NHL regular. We know about Brad Lambert. We know the talent, the raw talent. Can that translate at the NHL level? That's something obviously that we're going to have to see about. But what are you keeping an eye on, I guess, when training camp and these early skates get started, Dave? You were there yesterday. What are you sort of looking out for more than anything else right now?
I think the depth, Drew, is what comes through to me for this organization. There's not they don't have a plethora of elite. They've got the Mark Scheifele's, the Kyle Connors, but overall they've got some very good talent. And, again, one of the biggest things I think that I notice, and I know not necessarily is it going to be a benefit of the Jets for right now, but just insulating the young prospects who are going to be in the organization with the Moose next year, the Yaggers, the Barlows, the Jacob Julians, in addition potentially the Chibrikovs and the Lamberts, are going to be a lot of really good veteran players down on the farm. And that's going to make the Moose a really good team. And I think that with that potentially a winning culture in Manitoba, it is going to have a huge positive impact for those guys. Now, maybe it's enough to get those guys. Remember, hockey's all about momentum, right? I mean, remember what happened with Kyle Connor in his first season, right? He didn't really get a lot of traction in the NHL, got sent down, didn't really have a lot of traction in the AHL, then went on a monster run, scored 21 goals in his last 20 games or something stupid like that. But then remember, he started the next season in the AHL.
Right.
And he had played really well. There was an injury. Was it Perreault who got injured? I don't remember. It was someone got injured, got the recall, and then never looked back. So again, that potentially could happen here with one of these guys. Is that they again, it's hard to judge that Moose team because they were so bad. They didn't score a lot of goals last year. So I'm not looking at what a Brad Lambert did or Nikita Chibrikov did or didn't do. Even a Parker Ford. Remember, Parker Ford went on a big goal scoring run in the AHL. I think he scored like 7 goals in 11 games. Got his first recall to the NHL. Well, he'd been recalled to the NHL the season prior when Chibrikov and Lambert played, but he didn't play in that game.
Don't forget about Fabian Wagner's goal scoring streak either.
Absolutely. There's another young, Jets draft pick who folks tend to not pay attention to. Didn't score in his first 31 games. I don't even think he had a point in his first 31 games in the AHL, and then went on a big run where he was scoring a goal a game. So there is young talent in the organization. Now, you're right, Drew. This is why this training camp battle is, or this training camp, probably more than almost anyone, there's so much up in the air. Like, there are a lot of veterans, but they don't have automatic jobs. Those veterans could just as easily either be a 13th forward, they could be in the AHL. And they would have to clear waivers, obviously, and then they'll be in the AHL, and maybe a young guy does do it. So that's why I would say, like, there's nobody that I'm sitting there going, like, with the exception of, like, a Nyquist, who I don't anticipate being sent down to the Moose, obviously. But with the exception of him, like, I'm not putting in Cole Koepke or Tanner Pearson or any of those guys ahead of, like, Gustafsson, Lambert, Chibrikov, because, again, that's why I think I'm not saying that they may not have an inside edge because of their NHL experience, but training camp is going to be the ultimate determining factor as to whether, if you see that Brad Lambert has off the charts chemistry with Jonathan Toews and Cole Perfetti, are you going to say, well, we're not going to we'll wait till later in the season to see if that's going to be something that we'll explore? Or are you going to give him a run of 5-10 games and expose one of these veterans? I would tend to think it's that, because you want this guy to be able to get that next jump. So that to me is what I'm watching, Drew, is some of these depth battles and see how they play out.
Yeah, like let's sorry, Drew, I was just going to quickly say, like, let's be honest. I mean, there's not a lot of intrigue when it comes to the goaltenders or the defense. I mean, the goaltenders are set, the defense is set, right? So what I'm saying is, Dave, spoke a lot about the forwards there, and that's for sure what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, can one of Lambo or Chibrikov, win a spot right out of training camp, right? Like, I think we would all agree it's probably unlikely that both crack a lineup spot. I mean, it's possible, obviously, but I would say it's probably not to be expected that both those guys are on the opening night roster. But when you talk about Tanner Pearson or Cole Koepke, like a guy like Koepke, I know that they really liked him in Boston, and he was a guy that, like, scored 10 goals in a Bruins uniform, and he was an energy guy on the fourth line. I'm excited to watch him a little bit more. I'm also really excited to watch Jonathan Toews. Like, I mean, this is a guy who I think there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot of uncertainty, but also just to see the impact that he has on the entire team, right? But I think that's what is the most intriguing about training camp, is those battles, right? Like those, like, it's not always the sexiest, to talk about a fourth line battle, but we're talking about second line too. And I agree with Dave.
But that's what most teams' battles are in training.
Yes. But you're right, Drew. But I think that, like some people in the chat are saying, it's not going to be the most exciting training camp. Well, I think it depends how you look at it, right? Like, the Jets are coming off of a President's Trophy winning season. There's obviously higher expectations than there were last year, I think. But there's a lot of opportunity here. I know we talk about that a lot, and we're going to be talking about that. But Dave is right. I mean, it's not like Chevy has, Scott Arniel has written anybody on the second line in pen. Like, it's pencil, right? Like, we don't know who's going to seize that job. Like, Gus Nyquist could be given a look on the wing on the second line, but so could Brad Lambert, right? And so could a guy like Alex Iafallo. Like, Alex Iafallo is a guy who a lot of people would like to see on the third line with Nino Niederreiter and Adam Lowry when he's healthy, but he's also a guy that can be very valuable on the fourth line, right? So even though some of these battles aren't the most exciting, I mean, this is what we're going to be looking at, because Scheifele and Velarde and Connor and these guys, I mean, they don't have to win jobs and in that respect, but like, the questions are going to remain, guys, for Jonathan Toews until we see him in at least a couple of preseason games. Sure. Then we can make a little bit more of an assessment. Then we see him a little bit more in the regular season, and then we can assess a little bit more, right? So there's definitely a lot to be excited for, even if the goaltenders and the defense are essentially set in stone.
Are the Jets too veteran laden, Dave? Is that a thing? Could you be too veteran laden? Do they need sort of that influx of youth? We were talking about that earlier, I think with Murat, saying, that the Jets, don't have, the youngest player, the youngest regular forward on this Winnipeg Jets team is Cole Perfetti, and he's, 23, 24 years old. Is there too much veteran laden, players on this team?
I mean, it's a fair question. We've heard for years that, what was the average age of the Florida Panthers last year, Drew? I guess you always kind of want to rinse and repeat and basically look at what those teams did. And if you look, they have some guys who are, there's a lot of guys who were born in the 90s who played on the Florida Panthers. So it's not exactly a young team. Now, did they have a guy like Anton Lundell, who is a good young player? But
sure.
Again, I don't know. I don't know that
he's 25 at this point, right?
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
Well, to Dave's
point,
he's
23.
To Dave's point, they don't have a lot of young players. They're a veteran team as well. Most Stanley Cup winners are veteran teams.
Yeah. Now, again, like I said, I think it's not, to me, age ain't nothing but a number. But I really think that it's a function, Drew, of can you play the style of game that you want to play. Now, we know the Jets' focus has always been defense first.
Yes.
Through the defense comes their offense. And again, they were the best defensive team. They kept the most goals out of their net.
2 years in a row now.
2 years in a row. But they also were the third highest. They were tied for third highest scoring team last year. So it wasn't like they didn't, it's not like they're like, we were only defense. Well, no, they were defense and offense, but they focused on the defense. So I do wonder about, when you say the veteran, I don't think veteran sometimes it comes across as a bad word, right? But I think what it comes down to, the truth is that the AHL is where you can play a lot of kids. We're going to see that this year. There are going to be a lot of kids, again, properly insulated. So there's going to be some very good vets as well. But there are going to be a lot of young Jets prospects developing in that league. The NHL is in a development league. Now, you could say, let's give some guys, they're not getting enough opportunity. That's totally fair. We've seen guys get stagnated. And, look, Johnny Kovacevic, for example, is a perfect example of a Jets prospect, third rounder.
Congratulations. He just got engaged.
Congratulations. Great guy. Really enjoy, talking to Johnny. So,
why do you know that?
I'm a Devils fan.
He's a Devils guy. He knows that kind of stuff. But
they posted it on the Devils Twitter account.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Well, our good friend Amanda will be at the wedding, hopefully.
Okay. Well, anyways, but my point isn't that. My point is that, you see sometimes that remember, they brought in guys that blocked the path. And we thought, is this going to block the path for Dylan Samberg and Johnny Kovacevic and Declan Chisholm? Well, it did for a couple of them. And then the Jets lost them, right? So you've got to be mindful of that as an organization, to want these guys to have success and put them into an opportunity to find success. So training camp will do that, right? Again, you can give them all the opportunity you want. That's my favorite O word is opportunity, right? For this organization. Can they have opportunity? Because
Drew's favorite O word is omelet.
I was going to say, your girlfriend's favorite word is
I could just see Mindell. I'm like, get through it, Manuk. Don't give in. Don't let Drew sidetrack you. Anyways, but I could see that little wry grin.
He was sitting on something.
I could just see it.
It's not my fault.
No, it's fine. But now I'm going to have to mute Drew because he's having too much fun. Anyways, Drew, you're muted while I finish my talk here. But the fact of the matter is that they need to have that opportunity, which they'll get at training camp. But if they don't take advantage of it, then you obviously you're not giving it to them for the sake of giving it to them. You're not the San Jose Sharks. You're not the Anaheim Ducks, who have the luxury of saying, okay, sure, we can play the kids because we don't have a roster that's competing for a Stanley Cup. So
that's why, sorry, Dave, I was going to say, that's why for me, Lambert is so fascinating, right? Because he obviously had the big first season with the Moose, and then, especially his goal totals dropped. And we all know that the Moose weren't very good last year, right?
Right.
So that's part of it. But I think the opportunity, there's not going to be a better opportunity for a guy like Lambert than this year, right? With the departure of the Ehlers. So I think Lambert to me is one guy that, and he had a good preseason last year, guys. Let's not forget, he was good in the preseason. A lot of people thought that he might have played more NHL games. So I think when you talk about Lambert and Chibrikov, there's a real opportunity for these guys to make the team, but it's going to be tough because, like, you got to think that, Pearson and Koepke, those guys are, if they're not locks to make the team, there's a good chance that they're going to be, at the very least, be 2 of the 13 forwards, right?
You don't sign those guys if you don't expect them to be. And no, you're okay if they get passed.
Right.
You're okay if somebody comes in and steals their job, especially a young player, because they cost you $1 million. I mean,
exactly.
They don't cost you any money to speak of. You're fine with burying, $1 million contract if you have to. And it's a good problem, I would say, if one of your young players comes and passes them. But, it's still an uphill climb to, get to that point for these young guys.
Yeah, and remember, there's also Jared Anderson-Dolan. I mean, there's a lot of depth. Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be.
I thought Anderson-Dolan was really good in the playoffs, Dave.
He was. Yeah. Did he score, or did he get the assist on that goal?
He had an assist.
Yeah, he had. I thought he tipped it. But yeah, I mean, regardless, I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, but what I'm saying is, like, remember, everyone saw him as a 13th forward until he broke his foot. Was it against Calgary where he suffered
in the preseason?
Yeah. I thought it was against Calgary. But the point is that you've got a situation where you've got a lot. That's my whole point. And you want that. You want that as an organization to have, 16 guys who could play in your 13 forward spots and say, do the battle, or 20 guys, or whatever it's going to be, whatever the number is going to be, guys, and say, you're going to battle it out for the next 2 weeks. And here's your chance, your opportunity, Drew, your favorite word, to
another O word.
Yeah, to earn a spot with the Jets. And so, and obviously what always factors in is whether you're going to lose guys to waivers and play that game, right? We always watch GMs where they try and load up when everybody's putting guys on waivers, so you don't necessarily lose a guy, but and like I said, there's what's his name, Samuel Fajemo, or I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He was a really good scorer at the AHL level. I think he was one of the top. I think he had second most goals in the AHL for the Ontario Reign. He's a Kings prospect who the Jets signed this year. So, I mean, one of the things we talk about is scoring. He scored a lot in the AHL, so not as much in the NHL. But there's another name that is not necessarily one folks are talking about, but maybe with the right opportunity, he there's a lot of sweet in the Jets organization, right?
Well, if we're talking about guys that are going to score for the Manitoba Moose, Dave, we obviously got to talk about AHL legend Phil DiGiuseppe. That guy has scored for years in the American Hockey League. He's another guy that I think they're going to expect.
Well, you talk about the insulating of the young players at the AHL level. That's what those guys are going to do. They're going to show. These guys are, I know that they're not. They might not have been NHL regulars, but if you are a professional, a veteran at the AHL level, that means you know how to prepare your body and how to prepare games, game after game, season after season, and it helps teach these young guys. We were talking earlier about, what Jonathan Taves can still teach Mark Scheifele. Well, the same is for veteran guys teaching young guys at the AHL level as well. And, that's just where, look, the Winnipeg Jets would gladly have one of their young players perform at such a high level that they can't be sent down to the Manitoba Moose or they steal a job. It's happened before. It'll happen again. The Jets would love for it to happen this year. Whether or not it does, they've at least, I think, put themselves in a position where you're not reliant on one of those young guys to steal a job or earn a job that they might not be ready for. They're not going to be handed a job by default because the Jets, as we sort of talked about at the beginning of the show, their aspirations are Stanley Cup. And when your aspirations are Stanley Cup, that means that everything is earned, nothing is given. And that has to be the mantra, both at the NHL and at the AHL level, as the 2025-2026 hockey season gets underway. And same with the 2025-26 legal curve season as well on this Saturday morning.
Now, Drew, before you end the show, I really don't think we can end the show without talking about what happened in Philly last night, because I'm sure you saw that fan steal the home run ball from that man and his kid.
Yes. Well, a woman came and stole. I thought it was a woman who came and stole the home run ball from a child.
Yeah, she did. But I thought it was hilarious because I like to think about it with the time when we were in Philly back in 2014 for the NHL draft and went to a Phillies game. That Chase Utley homer that Ezzy won't remember because he was in.
I remember it.
What was the name?
You were there. You left.
You were with
already.
Hustler
in. We still saw it. Xfinity Live.
Xfinity Live. That's right. That's where you.
At least that's what it was called 10 years ago.
No, but I'm just saying it was just so funny though when we were there and I saw that woman steal the home run ball from the kid, and good on the Phillies and a lot of folks who have come to that dad and the Phillies and the kids rescue, if you will.
Yeah.
And the Phillies gave him a bat and a ball, and some guys sending him to the World Series. So it paid, and that woman now is getting torched. So
Yeah.
Drew, I just felt bad because you were once that young child who had a
was.
home run ball stolen. Chase Utley's home run ball in the 14th
Ripped out
inning.
of my hands.
Ripped out of
my
your
face.
hand.
Ripped out of my face. Yeah, in any event, as a lot of people giving you advice as to how you can get rid of your apples. So reach out to any of those great charitable companies.
Well, I'm going to the Banjo Bowl with our good buddy Zach Schnitzer, aka Schnitzy.
Oh, I'll see you there.
So, you're going to be
Schnitzer,
there.
of course, from does some work with our friends at Bonfire Sports and Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'll be there. Laura and I are going.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll say hi to Laura. I won't say hi to you, but maybe I'll bring a garbage bag full of apples to the Bombers game.
You can throw them at the
I don't think you'll be allowed in with a bag full of apples. But sure,
Dave, it's just me with a big garbage bag, and it's just like a swarm of wasps like surrounding me,
following you.
Well, you can look forward to that. So go see Ezzy and his apples. You'll be giving them out outside of gate number 3 at this afternoon's Banjo Bowl.
I don't think Wade will like that, Drew.
Probably not, but I'm sure Wade won't even want you in the building to begin with. So that's a separate issue altogether. Big thanks to all of you. It's been great to be back here on this Saturday morning. We'll do it all again next Saturday as we continue on with season 17 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to all our sponsors. You know our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsors. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Nate Craig at Rumors. 2 shows tonight. Been killing it all week. Get your tickets, rumorscomedyclub.com. Our friends at Holt Dental, City Place, Wheatland Hockey, Boston Pizza. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. If you know of a company or you have a company and you think that they should be doing some good business with us, let us know. We'll reach out to them. We got lots of different packages, lots of different things available. We want to expand our offering and our list of commercial sponsors. So let us know if you know of anything. Thanks everyone for joining us. Big thanks to Murad Atesh earlier for joining us. Smash the like button if you haven't already done so. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to all of our social media channels. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. As always, if it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.